Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm thrilled to be chatting with the creator of the webcomic Fleaboy and Weasel, Ashlee Wyatt. Welcome, Ashlee.
Thank you for having me.
Excited to be chatting with you and to talk more about these two, Fleaboy and Weasel. So, I wanted to start by asking you about some of your creative influences. So, I was looking at your website and everything, and I saw that you had said that you're inspired by Looney Tunes, Popeye, Mickey Mouse cartoons, and then also current shows like South Park and Bob's Burgers, like all great stuff, Simpsons. Also, I think what's great with this comic is the influence of Calvin and Hobbes. So, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear about all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Calvin and Hobbes wasn't necessarily intentional. I mean, I grew up
Mm.
reading that too. I grew up reading like when people used to get newspapers, and that's probably going to age me a little bit. But my parents used to get like the Sunday newspaper, and I would read the web comics. I would read the Sunday comics all the time. So as when people started comparing it to Calvin and Hobbes, and I started rereading some of these episodes, I'm like, oh, you know what? There is a little bit of similarity. Again, that wasn't intentional, but it kind of is. I've also been compared to Lilo and Stitch. And I didn't watch Lilo and Stitch until after I had my daughter. I had my daughter, she's 5 years old now. And I I watched it after she was born, and it was one of the ones I just missed growing up. And I was like, oh, now that makes sense why someone compared it to Lilo and Stitch. Because the
Mm.
whole dog premise. And again, that was completely coincidental. So I think with some of my influences, again, just reading Sunday comics as I was growing up, I've always liked drawing as a kid. And I would just always like copy like other things that I would see. And as I got older, I mean, things kind of switched. I got more into like computer stuff. I used to be a computer software engineer. And so now I think as I watch stuff now, so I grew up on The Simpsons,
Mm.
grew up on King of the Hill, all that kind of stuff. I will only say like probably the first 10 years of The Simpsons is probably the best. I don't watch anything that's newer now. South Park, South Park is just absolutely crazy and insane. Um, they get away with so much, it's ridiculous. And I think with this comic, I wanted it to be where it's a little bit ridiculous, but still somewhat kid friendly, you know? So I'm not going to the I think the worst humor it could be is probably The Simpsons. And I think it's still even a little bit more tame than that. I really am now, especially as I'm older, I think I'm really influenced like early Disney animation stuff. Snow White, like
Mm.
Pinocchio. Like if you look at it more just as an artist, just how beautiful it is all like painted and everything. It's just like the animation's gorgeous. Although I do think Snow White was probably rotoscope probably through most of the film, I think. Just my own opinion. If you look at Snow White the way she's drawn, and then you look at Pinocchio, you'll see a little bit of difference in the way it's drawn, I think. But like Pinocchio, I think Pinocchio is probably a more beautiful film than say Snow White, but they're both pretty close. I like even the stuff like when we had like Cinderella, so that was very influenced by Mary Blair, I think, with her style. And then also during the Renaissance period of Disney as well, Lion King, Aladdin, Little Mermaid. And I mean, my husband and I we've always been Disney fans. So even before Mackenzie, my daughter, we're going to Disneyland all the time. So after her, it's a little bit more expensive, so it's a little bit harder. But so even now we're still Disney people, and I still like to look at just even like the animation stuff of it, and just look at how nice these things are done. I think like so my daughter watches a lot of cartoons, so a lot of Disney Junior, Mickey Mouse Funhouse, Bluey. That's the big one right now.
Oh,
Everybody loves Bluey. Although what I really like about Bluey, there's actually a lot of adult humor in it, but it goes over the kids. But like I think the creator said it's actually a cartoon for parents that kids can watch.
mm.
And that makes a lot of sense when you watch it. Because even as a parent, like, oh, they kind of like slip some like adult humor in it. It's actually pretty funny. And I think it's actually well done animation wise. And it's nice because it's also 2D. It's not everything's all 3D. And I really miss the 2D stuff. So like when Princess and the Frog came out, I was really happy when that came out. So, but then I mean the 3D stuff looks good. Although I think what's the last film? Wish I think was absolutely very disappointing. So anyway, I think I'm kind of getting off topic where I was, but so a lot of that kind of stuff has just been influenced, and I really do appreciate now the art of it all as well too, and just how it's done.
That's really cool. I resonate with a lot of what you just said, but I have to know what's like your favorite Disney movie, would you say?
Oh, see now that one's tough. That one's really tough. It's okay. Right now for me, and probably more well, art too, but I think more story-wise, it's probably between the animated Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Mulan. Just because I
Oh,
really like the female characters of those movies.
fantastic. Yeah. See, that's sad you have to like specify animated because I know all the live action remakes, which that's a whole other thing, obviously. But
Yeah. Yeah, the
gosh.
the animated's way more interesting. And just I don't feel like they ever needed to be redone as live action. Beauty and the Beast was okay live action. I just think they could have gotten a better singer.
Mm.
I'm sorry. I think Emma Watson is a good actress. I think she was probably good for it, but maybe had someone else professionally do the singing of that too.
I think that's a fair thing to say. I will say with that, I think Gaston and LeFou were amazing. Those two
Mhm.
actors, was it Luke Evans and Josh Gad?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I know there was supposed to be like some sort of spin-off series with them starring it that just never came to fruition, like on
Huh.
Disney Plus. Yeah, I remember
Oh
that
yeah.
from several years ago. There's always like projects, I guess, that kind of come and go. And the thing is, now with Disney, currently we're seeing with upcoming movies, it's going to be all these sequels. Toy Story 5, I know it's Pixar,
Oh,
but still
which
Disney owns them. I mean, like, is that necessary? I'm sorry, but like the first
yeah,
three, that's like the golden, trilogy with Toy Story. Toy Story 4 was not necessary, in my
I
opinion,
agree. I
you
mean,
know?
that one upsets me too because I feel like the way Woody was treated in that film, I was
Mm,
very upset by it. And I'm not a big Forky person. I mean, he's kind of funny, but if
mm.
if they got rid of the character, I would not be heartbroken over it. So
That's too funny.
I
That's
don't
funny.
know how they're going to do number five, but I think internet rumors are saying that it's going to be Andy looking for his toys. I'm like, how is this going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, because with Toy Story 4, it upset me that like after the super emotional, beautiful scene when Andy gives all of his toys to Bonnie, then it kind of undercuts it because then now he's a lost toy, and it's like
Mhm.
just go back to I want to see him reunite with Andy, I guess is what yeah, it's like it's Andy's toy. That's his, that's his
Yeah.
kid. Yeah. So it's just like I guess we'll see. I don't know. It's interesting. Gosh.
And then like there's gonna be Frozen 3, and I'm like, how can they make any more movie out of that one? And every kid loves Frozen. My daughter watched Frozen like so much, and Frozen 2. And did you ever watch like the making of Frozen 2 on
Oh
Disney
no, I
Plus?
haven't.
Oh, you
Oh,
should
I'll have
watch
to
it.
check that
It's
out.
kind of really interesting because you realize how much trouble they had coming up with that story. There was a lot of back and forth on it. It's very interesting because then you realize, okay, because the movie was okay, and I think some of the songs were like decent, but I think when you're trying to recreate something that was like as phenomenal as Frozen 1, where it just that I don't even think they even realized how big that movie is probably going to be. And like kids were singing at the store. I'd be at a store and some kids like singing "Let It Go" like randomly. So when you're trying to recreate that same magic, it's kind of hard. I mean, that is an impossible feat. But you can see where like some of the stories really when you watch two, the story is very confusing in many parts. And you're trying to sit there and understand it. So if you watch the making of it, it makes sense why, because they're there trying to figure out that story as they're making the film.
Okay. I always love making of type things. I'll
Mhm.
have to check that out on Disney Plus. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Interesting. What's your daughter's favorite Disney movie right now?
Movie probably still is, I would say Encanto still is her favorite.
Oh, nice.
Oh my gosh, she'd watch that two, three times a day. It was like Encanto all day, every day.
Oh, I love that. Oh,
Uh, I
and
think
she
it's
loves
still Encanto. She loves the songs in that one, and
mm,
just it's a good one. I do miss because like if you notice like the last few films with Disney animated movies is they're kind of missing like sort of the bad guy in it. Where a lot of earlier films had more of a villain. Although Wish does have a villain,
mm.
but it's just not a good villain.
I haven't seen Wish. I kind of have like no desire to see it based on everything I've heard. Like
Yeah,
nothing
it's
is
just
bad here.
it's it's very disappointing. But I mean, if you want to, I don't know. I don't know what happened with that film. So,
Hmm.
but like, it's just unfortunately compared to like if you go from Encanto to that, it's like a big difference in like quality. Is I think, and I don't know if it's just the story. I don't know if it's the animation looks kind of odd to me because they try to do like this 2D on top of 3D, which they've done before with some shorts that looked really good. But this movie, for some reason, looked really odd, and I don't know why.
Oh, interesting. I did like I forget what it's called now, that short they did for the 100th anniversary. What was it, like Day in the Studio? I can't,
I
I'm
still need
blanking.
to watch that. That I've been wanting
It
to
was
watch.
good. It was cute because it's just like kind of a love letter to all the Disney characters. So it was cute and
Mhm.
had the 2D and the 3D characters, obviously. So I liked that. But so I know we're like on Disney tangent anyway. So I want to hear about some of your favorite comic strips that you read growing up. Like for me, it was Peanuts always.
Yeah.
I gotta say,
So definitely Peanuts was up there. Garfield,
Oh, me too,
um,
actually.
Calvin and Hobbes, Family Circus. I
Oh,
like that
cool.
one. Yeah. Let's see what else. I used to read BC as well. I'm trying to think if Pearls Before Swine was in the newspapers at
Oh,
first.
hmm.
That one I follow on Instagram. I do like that one, probably more as an adult. But I think all of those main ones were probably the main ones that I read growing up.
Oh, cool. And so I know you studied art in college, but then specifically you double majored in computer science and art. So that's really cool. So like you
Yeah.
have that background as like a web designer as well. But so
Mm.
I want to hear a little bit about also your company, or is it with your husband as well with Mad
Yeah.
Experiments? Yeah.
Mhm. So when I came up with the comic strip, so when we launched the comic strip in 2021. So we didn't have a company behind it yet.
Okay.
I knew I had this idea for the comic strip and I wasn't quite sure what we were going to do. Like I didn't even know if we were going to print out comic strip. I didn't know if we were going to print out comic books or what we were going to do exactly. So originally this comic strip was created by me and my dad. And so then a year later or 6 months later, my dad decided to he didn't want to do it anymore. He's retired. He just wants to remain retired. And so my husband decided like, "Hey, I want to help you with this." So I kind of gave my husband more of the business task, although he does have like creative input as well. So, and I think we were coming up with the name for, so I said, okay, well, let's start thinking how we can actually make this into a business. So Mad Experiments was actually a domain name that I bought like years ago, and I just liked the name. So when I was in college, I was trying to do like a bunch of like online games. I was trying to make my own online games. And again, this part's gonna age me a little bit, but when early 2000s when Flash used to be the thing, I was really into making like Flash games and stuff for a little short while. And so and then I bought the name Mad Experiments because I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool name. And I've just owned it ever since. I used it a little while for my online portfolio, and then I took the site down. So, anyways, so years later, and I told my husband, well, I still have this domain name. And he thought, oh, that's kind of a cool name. We should make our company that. So that's
Mhm.
where Bad Experiments actually kind of came from.
Oh, that's cool. So yeah, that just like worked out then. That's really nice. And I do think that's really amazing that you started this comic initially with your dad. But so I understand because I was reading on your website that you came up with the idea back in 2011. But
Mm-hmm.
then what made you decide to finally launch it in June 2021, like literally a decade later?
So, okay, so I can't say exactly where the idea came from, but
Mhm.
it is based on some real life inspiration. So originally my dad and we would make jokes. So we kind of came up with the characters already, and we would just kind of talk about these characters. And so we'd be like out of the restaurant or something. And then,
Mhm.
we would make jokes and say, oh, well, if the character Fleaboy was here, he probably would eat all our food, not just the one plate that he would have. We would just do stuff like that. And
Mhm.
wherever it was. And so eventually I told my dad, maybe we should do something with this. And so this was back like in 2011. We were originally supposed to launch it in 2013. So we actually drew out the first episode. We did it much more traditional, more like pencil on paper and then ink on paper. And then we were scanning it in. But just because of life just got busy, I got busy at work. I used to be like a manager of a team for the company I worked at. So on the website. So things just got busy and they kind of got pushed to the back. So around the end of 2020, at the company that I was at the time, things were kind of changing. and they made some changes. I was not happy with those changes. And I just the first thought to my mind that came was I need to bring my comic back. Now, for whatever reason, I just decided it was always on my mind. And so I told my dad, you know what? Let's bring it back. Let's do it. So then we kind of came up with this process. I do it much more digitally now. And then we've actually launched it. So it was something that was always there. And I think about and just wanted to do. It just, I think maybe originally the original timing probably wasn't good. And I think now the timing became like, I just got to do it now.
Nice. Yeah. So, what was the very first one that you published?
So it's an episode where Fleaboy, how he meets Weasel.
Okay. Mhm.
So yeah, I don't think it's on the website right now. I think I took it down. Um, so I think we're making changes to our website. We are going to launch a new website soon. So I might put it all up again. But we'll see. So it's how Fleaboy goes to the animal shelter, and he wants to adopt a dog. And so he sees Weasel, and so Weasel decides that he's going to trick this guy. So Weasel starts barking like a dog, and so Fleaboy's like, "Oh, I want this dog." And the I guess the dog catcher or whatever you call him now. He's like, "Hey, this is a dog." So, anyways, Fleaboy insists that he takes Weasel home. So it's kind of the setup to so you can kind of see where their relationship's going to be. So the first few episodes is where it just sets up the relationship where Fleaboy really thinks Weasel's a dog, and Weasel gets kind of fed up, like, "I'm not a dog." So it's kind of the running gag through the comic.
I love that. Yeah. I know I've seen like the memes you did, which is so funny of
Yeah,
like, saying he's a dog and then like he has his shirt. I know
yeah,
that's too funny. And obviously, yeah, I do see the parallel then with Lilo and Stitch because similar
yeah.
situation. That's fantastic. Thinking it's a dog. That's too good. So, tell me about the character design in particular. So, like, which one came first?
So originally, my dad designed Fleaboy, and I designed
Hmm.
Weasel. And they've had a few redesigns. I think I had Fleaboy a little bit younger. My dad had him. I mean, he's probably about 21, I guess, in the comic, I would say. So my dad came up with the more like egg-shaped kind of look of Fleaboy, which was better than what it was before. It was a little bit more of a square shape before. So I think now the way a Fleaboy looks is much better. Weasel, I just kind of had the thought in my mind. And it was just kind of Weasel hasn't changed too much from like even the original design. I knew I wanted it to be, although Weasel's okay, so they're not good guys, but they're not bad guys. They're kind of like scoundrels a little bit. And so Weasel, I still wanted him to be cute though. But Weasel's kind of mean to Fleaboy. And I wanted him to be more that anthropomorphic type of character where he's walking like a human. I don't it's kind of weird, but I kind of go whatever feels best in my gut feeling. So
No,
if
that's
that kind of makes sense, it's kind of weird. It was just something I've always kind of envisioned Weasel to look that way. Fleaboy, we knew we wanted him to be kind of an overweight character. And then my dad thought it'd be funny if his stomach is showing through his shirt. So just so we just that's kind of where it came from. Weasel, again, I can't talk too much about it, but the real life inspiration when you think someone's a little bit kind of sneaky, that's kind of where that kind of comes from, I guess. But I knew I wanted Weasel to be I wanted them to be like buddy buddies. So that's why we're like so in Calvin and Hobbes, they are buddy buddies, but Hobbes is still a stuffed animal, where
mm.
Weasel really is talking to Fleaboy. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question that well, but
No, definitely. I like hearing just about the, your thought process behind it. I find it
Mhm.
really interesting. And because my interpretation of their dynamic, tell me if this is wrong or not, I see it as like Weasel putting ideas into Fleaboy's head, and Fleaboy's just kind of the impulsive one as it is. So of course it's gonna be like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean there was definitely that as well too.
That's too funny, I know. Because also, like you said, I see Simpsons humor in there. Also, a little bit, they kind of vaguely remind me of like SpongeBob and Patrick, like that,
Oh, okay. Now that's
like best
I
friends.
haven't heard that one before, and I never watched SpongeBob. That's probably one of the few I haven't watched.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. SpongeBob, I know it's going to be its 25th anniversary. It's honestly, it's like one of still like the biggest cartoons of all time. I would say it's like kind of crazy.
Yeah, they had him do the Super Bowl on
They
like
did.
Nickelodeon. That's kind of crazy. Like what?
Isn't that kind of amazing? I find it
Yeah.
amazing that the voice actors just kept up those characters through like 3 hours, whatever. Like, that's impressive. I think that's like, wow. Oh my gosh. But I do find it funny how, so with Fleaboy and Weasel, that basically each strip is like independent of one another because like you
Mhm.
have some where like say Fleaboy is killed off and some where Weasel's
Yeah.
killed off. I do find that funny too.
Yeah. Yeah, they're independent stories. The crossover is like the reference of Weasel the dog and stuff like that. And there's some like gags like that. If you look at the what is it? The episode or where they're doing the 5K. If you look on the banner, there's like a little symbol on the banner, the start banner, and that actually is like a little Easter egg. It's a symbol of when I don't remember if this episode's up, is when they think Weasel, excuse me, when they think Fleaboy is a beached whale and they're gonna harpoon.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's hilarious. Oh my
So there
God.
is a little bit of a crossover in that sense of, I guess, the continuation. But yeah, they are independent. So yeah, if they die on one episode, they're back up the next day.
That's good. I love that. That's too funny. And so when you come up with these ideas, because I notice a lot of them basically like the punchline is in like that last panel, which is
Mhm.
hilarious. So do you basically kind of work backwards where, okay, this will be a funny joke, or do you like, how do you come up with these ideas basically?
Yeah, I think okay. So yes, there is that. So let's take the beach. Okay, so even the harpoon one. Okay, so let's take that one. So originally we didn't have that last panel. We actually had it up to where they discover Flea Boy's on the beach and he's like they think he's a beached whale. So but I remember thinking like, okay, this one needs a little bit more than that. So that's when I came up with Weasel running out with some guys and they're gonna take him to like the aquarium or something. But so some of it is where I do have that. And so like my ideas I come up with are like, okay, what would be kind of funny in this situation? And then it's about building the story around it. So it just kind of depends. But we do usually come up with the gag first, I guess in that sense, and then we build the story around it. And then some episodes have multiple gags. Like not this past Halloween episode, but the Halloween before it has a lot of gags in it. It's almost a gag in every kind of panel without it's just smaller gags. So like this past Halloween episode, that one's actually based on the movie The Human Centipede.
Okay, yeah, because yeah, you got them sewed together. Like, okay, I see
Wrong.
that now.
Yeah.
That's
So
too funny.
and I had thought of that, like, what can we do with that? And I was gonna do it the way the movie was. And I don't know if you've seen that movie. That movie is disgusting. The movie's like, I can't watch that ever. It was it was awful. I could not. I had trouble sleeping that week. It was a terrible
Oh
movie.
no.
It was just so disgusting. But I had to figure a way to make it funny so it wasn't disgusting as I was drawing it. So
There you go. I haven't seen it, but I've seen like South Park made fun of it, and I'm like,
yes,
okay, yeah, you've seen
and
that.
that's
That's too
that
funny.
is close enough.
Oh my God. Oh gosh. But it's funny because like you have that joke though, where I think it's Fleaboy who says, "How do we go to the bathroom?" That
Yeah.
reminds me actually of like Cat Dog because like they're
Oh, I've heard
enjoying.
of cat dog. Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, I know all like these Nickelodeon shows. I love all that. But I also really like the one where you have the like Fleaboy saying he'll trim the Christmas tree, and then of course he ends up shaving Weasel. That's so fun. So again, like that reveal with that last
Yeah.
panel. Oh
So
gosh.
I think with this comic, I want it to be very visual in that sense. So yeah, a lot of the gags are in the actual drawing of itself. And there's even a part of me where I feel like I want it to feel animated without it actually being animated. So that's why, like, if you notice, my panels are actually growing longer. So I think originally the average panel was probably about 4 panels. The average comic was about 4 panels. Now they're going up to like 6 to 8 panels. And it's just
Hmm.
like I'm like, they're getting longer, but I just go by what feels right to me. And I think, well, this is funny. So like where they have like sometimes they have the stairs with each other, or I want it to feel very visual as you're feel very animated as you're reading the comic. Hope that makes kind of sense.
That does. Yeah, it's funny because I did want to bring that up too because yeah, reading it does remind me of like basically animation, like because like the slapstick humor, I could see this like
Mhm.
being animated. Do you have plans for that at all, or do you want to strictly keep this as a comic only?
We do have a YouTube channel, and there is one like full animation on there. Um,
Oh,
it's a lot of work, especially if I'm doing it by myself.
oh
So
yeah.
so you'll probably see more. There is another one I'm trying to work on. It's just I'm not that good. with the animation stuff yet. And it just takes a long time, at least for me right now. I think eventually we'd like to have more of it as we kind of grow this comic. But yeah, we do have plans for that. So hopefully when I get I'm trying to plan out like the year stuff right now. So I'm hoping to have a few more animated stuff on our YouTube channel.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's
Mhm.
exciting. What like programs do you use for
I
that?
use Clip Studio Paint.
Oh, cool. Okay. And also, like when you're actually drawing the comic, you say you only do it digitally now, or do you start still like pen to paper?
So I will, okay, so I have a like an e-ink tablet. I have a Remarkable.
Mm,
So I'll actually do some really like very, very rough storyboards on there first. And then I'll actually do paper storyboards and put that up like on a cork board because I want to be able to look at it all. And then I want
mm,
my husband to be able to come by and look at it. So I have to look at my husband and his reaction to the comics. If he's not laughing at it, okay, it's not going to go through. So
mm. Oh, there you go.
I have to see like his reaction to see is it a legit laugh or is this like, okay, it's not that funny. And then once I do that, then everything else is all digital. So then I'll do like a rough kind of layer just to kind of lay out everything. And I think what I like is so I think some people they kind of go from like a basic storyboard and back into like drawing right away or making it a little bit more detail. I kind of spend like this little extra time with the storyboard phase. So it's like a very rough storyboard, like a final storyboard, and then like a rough layer. So it kind of each time I do it, it gets a little bit more detailed, or it makes me think about the comic a little bit more. So you'll see like it'll get changed too, because sometimes like, oh, I'll change what he says here, or I'll add a little bit more detail, or whatever. Or I'll add an extra panel because I decide, oh, this is gonna sound better or look better. So that's probably the only time I do. And oh, we have prints of our characters as well too. And I recently did this kind of a Super Mario World parody with Fleaboy and Weasel. So it's like Super Fleaboy World. And that one I actually had to draw initially just to plan it out on paper and pencil. So just to kind of get a feel for it. So yeah, so there is still little traditional work in there. But most the comic is mostly done digitally.
Oh, cool. But see, storyboarding, that's like a key step in animation as well. So obviously it's
Mhm.
like very similar. That's really cool. So that's a good like test audience. And if your husband isn't laughing, then it's like, oh no, gotta rework.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Does he like contribute jokes too, or he's just like,
Yeah, he does. So he definitely contributes to the jokes and he does contribute to ideas as well. He's actually better at coming up with the ideas for our social media stuff. So a lot of like if you look at our social media
oh,
when I first was doing it, it was like just another episode launch. It was like nothing. And so some of the other ideas were like I think like one of the ideas was oh Weasel says, "What time is it?" And Fleaboy's like, "Oh, it's like 3:30." And then Weasel says, "No, it's another time for Fleaboy and Weasel." Or my husband
oh.
came up with that idea, so I just draw it out. But he came up with it. So he's really good at like that kind of stuff. Where I'm a little bit better at coming up with the stories. But yeah, he does contribute to also to the stories as well too.
Oh, very cool. And how long would you say one like Fleaboy and Weasel comic strip typically takes to create, like start to finish?
I guess it depends on how detailed it is, but averagely, it probably takes a few days. Usually we already have stories written out already. So we'll have even just the idea. So even if it's like we come up with ideas all the time. And if it's an idea that seems like, okay, this is something we can work with, then we'll just write it down and we'll just kind of store it. So once we kind of have the gist of what the story is, it'll probably take me about somewhere between 2 to 3 days to go from actually basic storyboard to the final product.
Oh, cool. Does your
Mm.
daughter read them too?
She's a little young. She's only 5 right now, but she's looking at the characters right now and she'll go, "Oh, I like it."
Oh, nice. Oh, that's so cute. That's high praise because like little that's so cute. Oh gosh. And so I know right now you have currently like two full volumes of like in terms of like the actual physical books, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, so how's that process work in terms of like self-publishing those books?
Yeah, self-publishing is that's kind of interesting. It looks really good though when it's done. So we self-published through this company. It's called Comics Wellspring. Their quality is actually really good, and I think their prices are really good too. And so it really comes down to me just kind of taking all our old comic strips. So I do like about a year's worth, and then I put them into a format that would fit into that size. So like the first time I did it, I was like, how's this gonna do? And so I'm thinking, well, some panels I want to emphasize a little bit more than others, especially the stuff that has a gag in it, or this, or like maybe something that looks really cool that I think looks really good when it was drawn. I'll make those panels a little bit bigger than some of the other panels. And so then what I kind of do is I lay them all out, and it's probably about 35 pages or so. I think it comes out to averagely. I come up with the cover. Actually, my husband came up with the ideas for the cover. So I remember the first two. He was like, "Oh, the first one you should have their faces there, and then like kind of like an old like intro of a cartoon. Like, oh, that's a good idea." So he came up with the idea for that. So then I draw the cover. So the inside covers is just kind of the episodes and just kind of a very faded look. So the title pages, like we have like little micro comics in there too. So like the first title page, there's always like a little micro comic. And then the next page is usually something where again, it's almost like a single panel comic in the actual title page, even though it's just announcing like where our social medias and everything. So like last year, it's like or in volume two, it's Fleaboy pulling Weasel out of a hat, like a magician and a rabbit. But we also include exclusive episodes in those comic books as well too.
Oh, cool.
So the first volume one was actually a comic strip that was written by Fleaboy. So so
Oh, wow. I like
I
that.
created a comic strip where Fleaboy writes the episode. And then in volume two, Weasel writes the comic strip. But
That's
the comic
clever.
strip the comic strip is him explaining why he's not a dog. So
There you go.
and then we also have like this episode where they're like on a deserted island. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
actually it's actually pretty funny. So I want to make sure like you're also getting some extra, a little extra with the comic book as well too. So you get kind of the episodes from online. They look better. It just looks really nice and clean, but there's also a little extra that you get with it as well too.
There you go. Yeah, honestly, like as much as digital media, it's like easier to get to, so to speak. Like nothing beats just print media to me still. Like just holding
Yeah.
a book, flipping through, Yeah.
Mhm.
And like even like you said, like newspapers, like that's more or less kind of irrelevant now, like more and more irrelevant. But people still buy newspapers, just kind of like not
Yeah.
as.
And people still buy books. So even though there's a
Yeah.
bunch of like ebooks and stuff like that, I mean, people still like books. Or like if you buy like these, graphic novels, you buy like I have like the Walking Dead series. I have it all in the hardback because it just looks really
Oh.
nice. I'd rather have it that way.
I know, right? Like the actual collectible thing. And that
Mhm.
just somehow reminded me too, when I was a kid, I actually had physical books of Garfield comics, actually.
Yeah.
Because I loved Garfield too. And see, now that too, there's been so many movies. There's like another animated, like live action movie coming out with
Oh
Garfield.
yeah.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Chris Pratt. It's like
Oh yeah.
another,
He's gonna
you
be the
know,
voice.
yeah, it's like, okay, another iteration of this. That's too funny.
Mhm.
But so in terms of Fleaboy and Weasel, do you have specifically like a favorite strip you've written to date or a favorite joke?
Yeah, there's that changes a lot too. Because
Hmm.
let's see, my favorite. Let's see. It tends to be okay. I think my favorite is still the Halloween episode, not this past year's, but the previous years, where they have the zombie weasel.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh
But it's his
God.
cousin. So if you read from the beginning, they run over Weasel's cousin. So that one may not even be up on right now. But so they in an old episode, they run over Weasel's cousin. And so they kill him, and the gag is like, well, Weasel says at the end, like, well, I didn't really care about him that much anyways, something like that. So, anyways, so we were kind of coming up with this Halloween episode, and both my husband and I thought of we should have like a zombie, and then we thought we should bring back the dead cousin. So so that's why when Fleaboy answers the door and then he sees the zombie cousin, it like it doesn't even face him. He's like, Weasel, it's for you. I mean, it's it's such a ridiculous episode. I think that one's my favorite. And that one has like multiple gags in it. Just from I think from a humor standpoint, that one's probably my favorite. I like the previous this the Halloween episode where the with the mad scientist because I like the way I drew that one. I think there was a lot more going on in that one. So I think that one's kind of cool to look at.
I like that too.
Yeah.
And also because that to me like it ties in well with Mad Experiments, like with your company, you got the mad
Yeah.
scientist. So I think that's like just a clever tie-in. But see, that's too funny. So you have the continuity with killing the cousin and coming back as a zombie, even though, of
Yeah.
course, they're still independent
Yeah.
episodes. That works. Yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh. I also really liked when you had them steal the Pacey's Christmas display items. Like
Oh,
that was great. And then giving
yeah,
each other
yeah.
the gift. Like, who would steal the like that was too funny. I was like, oh my God. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. So then do you plan on expanding the world in terms of maybe more of Fleaboy's family or Weasel's family, or just like only focusing on their relationship?
Yeah, I think eventually
Hmm.
we do have ideas of what Weasel's past might be, and like we might explain how he got captured and is in the animal
Oh,
shelter. Like I think there's gonna be some plans for that eventually. We're also gonna have stories based on where Fleaboy and Weasel are gonna be superheroes.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that one actually we may start it off just to introduce it into the web comic, but I think I'm gonna actually make separate books of those ideas. And those are probably gonna be in color.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Oh, so now, of course, that'll take more time though. So
Yeah.
that's kind of be like more themed ones. That's cool.
Hmm.
So here, oh, very exciting.
Yeah. And I've also had ideas to do like maybe even where they have stories based on fairy tales,
Oh,
like the
nice.
Hansel and Gretel ones. Like I kind of have an idea for that. That's just kind of sitting there and
Oh,
just waiting to be worked on. So that one might be its own separate book. I haven't decided yet.
I could totally see that. And like Little Red Riding Hood, I could definitely see that, them like pretending. Oh, that's
Yeah.
hilarious. Like Big Bad Wolf. Oh, that's cool. That's cool ideas. And then in terms of mad experiments, do you plan on doing other projects or still just like focusing on this for now?
We are going to launch another comic strip. And
Oh,
so
cool.
hopefully my goal is to get that comic strip out like probably by mid-year, hopefully mid-year this year. I was hoping by next month, but I think I'm gonna need a little bit more time than that. So actually the mad scientist that's in the Halloween episode there is gonna be in his own comic strip.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow. Okay, so it's like, yeah, expanding that universe
Yeah.
too.
So yeah, so we're gonna have that. And then once we get that one going, and that one's gonna be in color. And eventually after that one, there's gonna be a third comic strip that I've had an idea for. So it's gonna be about a Grim Reaper.
Oh, cool. That's really exciting. And so obviously, so we met, of course, at Pasadena Comic Con. So I'd
Mhm.
love to hear about some of your like favorite fan convention experiences and like getting to meet people and like see their reactions to the comic and things like that.
Yeah, let's see. I look at people when they look at the comic strip. So they look at it and you could tell when they really like, and you can always tell when people don't really care that much. And that's okay. We're not for everybody. I'm not even worried about that. We did, we were at Comic-Con Revolution last year and we tried doing a raffle. And the raffle didn't go that well for us, but we like I gave out like a drawing that I made and I think we gave out a t-shirt too. That was the prize. And so there was this one couple, so they entered the raffle. And then he was like, oh, he goes, oh, I'm really liking your stuff. So he bought the two comic books. So I said, well, and then he entered the raffle. And then when we told him that he won, he was like super excited. Like him and his wife or girlfriend were really pumped. And it was really kind of that was really cool to see. Just to see when someone who's really pumped up to get like your artwork or something. So that was really exciting. We try to like network with other people where we try to learn from other people and what they're doing and see how things are going with them. We did WonderCon last year. We're gonna do it again this year. What else? Let me think. This is kind of hard because I'm trying to think through my brain of everything
Oh,
that's
yeah.
kind of happened, all these conventions.
Now, yeah. Mhm.
So, okay, so our very first convention, which was in 2022, and that was Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario. So we
Mhm.
decided to just book it. We really didn't have anything. So we thought, well, let's just do it. Me and my husband. Let's
Mhm.
just do it. And we had like one t-shirt as our merchandise and then like a print and then like nothing else really. So we had like a banner. We had very basic stuff. And then we looked at everybody else and it was like, oh man, we have nothing. So we're just sitting
Oh
there,
no.
like, we have nothing. But it was a very good learning experience. And then at least during that time, so what I did was I printed out all our comic strips that we had online. I put it like in a little portfolio, and I just had people look through it and say, "Hey, take a sticker, take a postcard, come follow us, etc." So, and what I would do there is I would watch people's reactions and just see
Mhm.
what they thought. So then I was seeing like, okay, there's people who really do like the humor. They think it's funny. And so, and I think we sold like one t-shirt to somebody and we were like stoked about them. And like, we're like, no one knows who we are, but they bought a t-shirt from us. So I think that part was actually really exciting. And so I really enjoy seeing what people's reactions to it to see if they really like it. And because that at least gives me an idea like, okay, we have something that people like. And I think that's what's really important about that. So, because if you don't like it, then you don't really have anything to sell or an audience for. So,
That's exciting. People are connecting with it, connecting with the art, with the characters.
mhm.
Yeah, those can only, keep expanding.
Mhm.
That's great. Would you say generally it's more kids, it's more adults, or I'm sure it's like kind of,
It's
all
actually kind
ages?
of both.
Hmm.
It's been kind of a mix of both adults and kids. So
Nice.
when I knew, and originally, not that I wasn't not making it for kids, I think I didn't know who the audience was. I think because the audience was like me. So
Hmm.
the audience was myself. So I was thinking, okay, it's probably gonna be like this age. And then when I noticed that kids were kind of liking it, I'm like, oh, kids like it too. I had a teacher buy a couple comic books from us for her classroom. I had like another like at the first Pasadena Comic Con, I had two kids who were interested and they got comic books. And so their parents would always ask me, like, is it kid friendly? So I always explain to them, like the worst words and they're like stupid and I think idiot are like the worst words we have. And then it's like cartoon violence of like think like Looney Tunes and all that. So that way
Hmm.
they understand what they're getting to, depending how strict the parents are. But I would say it's like, older kids. But yeah, also adults too. So at Pasadena Comic Con this year, it was all adults who bought it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's exciting. And in terms of more merchandise, so you've got like the t-shirts, books. Are you planning on more stuff in the future?
Yeah, so we have pins and sticker sheets as well too. We have hats. We have a lot. We do want to do more. I just don't know what yet. We are working on getting volume 3 comic book out now. So I'm working on that. Yeah, I don't know what other merchandise we're going to come out yet, but I'd probably like to do more pins. And then once we launch our Mad Scientist comic strip, then we'll probably do merchandise around that as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's exciting. What can you tell me a little bit about the Mad Scientist comic strip, like in terms of stories, things like that?
So, okay, so he's a mad scientist who's not very good at his job. So,
Okay.
so which
Yes.
if you saw that episode, that kind of makes sense.
Right.
He wants to be like the best mad scientist in the world, but he's just a terrible at his job. He's gonna have two sidekicks. So one is gonna be a little robotic hamster, and then the
Oh,
other one he's gonna have a pet Komodo dragon.
oh, cool. Huh.
So the robotic hamster is gonna kind of help the mad scientist kind of out of his problems, I think. And the Komodo dragon is gonna be kind of like a big dumb dog.
That's
So, and I think he's gonna want to eat the robotic. He's gonna go after the robotic hamster a lot. So, at least that's what I've been kind of thinking about. So,
I can envision it. People are gonna love that. That's hilarious. Oh my God. That's so exciting too. And so I know you mentioned also like the memes too, like on your Instagram. So you said your husband comes up with those, like for Fleaboy and Weasel.
yeah, he comes up with a lot of the ideas for social media. Sometimes
Mm.
I do too. So, like the Travis Kelsey one
Yeah.
that everybody, I'm like, we have to jump on this right now. So,
Right.
like, I came up with that one. So originally it was just going to be just the Travis Kelsey part, and then I thought, oh, I'm gonna put Weasel in with
That's
Taylor Swift.
good. That was so funny too. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. And then also I liked the one you had with the housewives, like you are a dog. And then
Oh
again,
yeah,
that's too funny. And the Barbie one, like this Ken is
yeah,
hungry.
I think I'm better at coming up with the ones that are more related to other memes that are out there, where my husband's better at coming up with like more like the single panel ideas.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
So, what's one that we've done recently? Geez, I can't. Oh, okay. The for WonderCon last year, we were trying to announce for it that we were going to be in our booth number, and he says, "Hey, we should have like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, but they're called Ricky Mouse and Ronald Duck." And so I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I'll make them look kind of weird and stuff like this. Hopefully Disney doesn't come after us or anything. But
Oh, right. Hmm.
but I guess if you have a Steamboat Willie now, then they can't come after us. But
Oh, true. That's in the public domain now.
yeah,
Steamboat
at
Willie,
least that
yeah.
version, only that version of Mickey Mouse.
Right. I know because it was similar with like Winnie the Pooh. It was like only that specific version of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, because I think they were saying like not Tigger, not like it's like very specific with all
yeah,
those like, rules with what's in public domain. That's interesting. I don't know. I could keep like asking about like Disney in general. Do you have a favorite Disney character? I gotta know that too.
My favorite, although it's technically Tim Burton, is Jack Skellington.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Big Before Christmas fan. Big fan of him.
There's so much merch with Jack Skellington and Sally. Like Jack, they're so cute. Like Jack
Yeah,
and
I have so much of it too.
I
I,
love that. I know because like especially around Halloween, but then, and people always say like, oh, is it a Halloween or a Christmas movie? It's both. Like, that's the
Mhm.
point.
Although I think Henry Selick, the director, I think he said it's actually a Halloween movie.
I mean, me personally, I do see it more as like Halloween. Like I
Yeah.
prefer watching it. I didn't see that movie. It's funny. Like as a little kid, I remember. So I would watch Disney movies over and over. My all-time favorite is Aladdin. But
Hmm.
so like the old VHS tapes.
Hmm.
So like on them before they would have like those previews for other movies, and so one of them was Nightmare Before Christmas. So I for years I had only ever seen like the trailer and not the actual movie. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, oh wow, now I see what I was missing. Like the music, it's
Yeah.
beautiful, you know?
Yeah, and it's like like the stop motion's really good in it and stuff like that. I mean, and now I think as I'm older, when I was a kid, I watched the movie just because I liked the movie. Where now I can look at like the artistry behind it as well too.
That I've seen making of with that movie, which is so interesting. Apparently, it was I forget the exact number, but like over 100,000 frames of like moving each character, each like set, all that stuff. So a lot of
Mhm.
work obviously went into it. So it's really really cool, really innovative. And also, let me see, who would you say is your favorite Looney Tunes character too?
Favorite Looney Tunes character. Well, that's kind of tough. Let me think. Gosh, if I say Bugs Bunny, it sounds so typical.
I know, I get that though, but I would say Bugs too. I
I know
mean,
I would say
Doc is
Bugs.
iconic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just what it is. Just can't help it. Just and like I think other than Jack Skellington, I would probably say Mickey Mouse is my favorite. And again, that sounds very typical.
I think nothing wrong with that, It's just
Mhm.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
that like they're iconic and recognizable for a reason. Like even The
Mhm.
Simpsons too, like, Homer and Bart certainly are
Yeah.
so like universally recognized. Mickey Mouse too, like even like just the silhouette, obviously, the ears and you know, so
Mhm.
that's really cool though. But so even of course, like with Fleaboy, he got the gut. So like that's too funny. That stands out. Like I love that. That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. So that's exciting. You got like more, so like you said, another volume in the works, another comic book in the works. That's really exciting stuff.
Mhm.
So that's fantastic. So it's been such an absolute pleasure, Ashley. And so as we're wrapping up, I love to end my interviews by asking about advice. This could be advice for artists, life advice, career advice, any advice you care to share.
Ooh, that's tough. Hold on. There's
Mhm.
always a lot of advice. Okay, so one of the things is I'm now working on this full time. And so I had quit my job. And it wasn't just to only work on this. It was really just my daughter has some special needs and I kind of needed to be with my daughter a little bit more. So anyway, so I think what I would suggest for anybody who's thinking like, okay, if there's something you're passionate about, do it, but be very smart on how you do it. So, like me leaving my job was not an overnight decision. It was a very, long discussion with my husband. Make sure you save your money. Whatever money, if you decide you're going to do it, save your money. And also test out your work in front of people and see it's something that people would really like to read or buy or whatever. And I think that's important because I think everybody kind of has the dream that they want to like, oh, I want to be an artist or I want to do this or I want to do that's great, but make sure there is like an audience for it as well too. Otherwise, you can't be just the audience of one only. And try things out. Don't be afraid. Just my husband's really good at just thinking a little outside the box and just trying things out and like, yeah, let's do it. And also listen to good advice. You don't have to listen to everybody's advice, but listen to good advice. Like someone before we even came up with the comic book, someone suggested, why don't you guys put this in comic book form? And we did. And so then we started selling that too. What else? Oh, I think that's probably it. I hope that's good enough.
No, absolutely. That's really good, practical, and like really, really good advice. I agree with all that. That's just well said. So this was really wonderful. So again, also please feel free to share where people can find Fanboy and Weasel, Fleaboy and Weasel,
Yeah.
apologies. Anything else? Fanboy, listen to me. Jeez.
So you could follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fleaboy and Weasel. You could also follow us on YouTube, X, and TikTok at Mad Experiments Official. You could also find my artist profiles at Instagram and Facebook at Ashley the Cartoonist. And then we are currently at fleaboyweasel.com. And also you could go to madexperiments.com. That is technically, we'll link you to Fleaboy and Weasel, but eventually everything will be moved to there.
Very cool. Yeah, that keeps expanding. This is wonderful. So best of luck as you continue on this journey. This
Oh,
is
thank you very
great.
much.
Absolutely. And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to check out storytellingsaga.com. And as always, feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.